Welcome back to Chibi Read. Today again with Ascendence of a Bookworm. I'll do anything to become a librarian. Part 1, Daughter of a Soldier, Vol.1. I know the numbers of parts and volumes can be a bit confusing at first. There are several parts describing the different parts of the life of the main character. So I already read some chapters last time, and what happened? We figured out that the little girl you can see up here is the main protagonist of the series. She's called Mine, and she is actually a reincarnated Japanese bookworm. And so far we learned that she got reincarnated in a seemingly poor family, and for now she didn't find any books. So today we will read a bit more and see if she can find her loved books or not. So here again we can see Mine and her close family and friends. In the front, the blue-haired girl is Mine. She's riding on a slate. Behind her, with the greenish hair, is her older sister Tuli. Left of it, the woman is her mother Effa, and the man with the blue, spiky hair is her father Günther. Then to the right of Tuli we have this little blonde-haired boy. This is actually someone we will know later on, so maybe I shouldn't introduce the right side of the characters for now. Again, here we can see a bit of Ehrenfest, and I would say let's just go to the actual chapter for today. Exploring the city. What you should do, you should grab something to drink. Last time I had Spezi, today I have Caramels. It's a malt drink. It's really sweet, but also refreshing, so that's what I will have today. So cheers, and then we can start. So, exploring the city. Yesterday I cried and cried and cried. My parents got mad at me for dropping their comforter on the ground, and dinner time came, but I just kept crying without reacting that much. When morning came, I had cried so much that my eyes were dry and puffy. My head pounded with pain. But my fever had gone down, and I didn't feel nearly as sluggish. Plus, I felt a lot better in general since I had cried my heart out. Though my family basically had no idea how to treat me at breakfast. Looks like your fever has gone down. Mom touched my forehead with her hand that was cold from having just washed dishes. She also lightly pressed against my swollen eyes. The cold felt so good. If you're feeling better, Mine, would you like to go to the market with me? One's being held today. Wait. Didn't she say something about this being the busiest time of the year at your dyeing job, and that she had to go to work even while I was sick with fever? Mom, seeing my confusion, lowered her eyes sadly. It's been so long since Tuli had a chance to go outside instead of taking care of you, and she was so worried yesterday when you wouldn't stop crying. The only thing we could think of was that you got lonely on your own, so I made the effort to convince my co-workers to cover for me today. Upon hearing that, I gasped. I can't believe I actually cried all day with people watching. I want to dig a hole and jump inside of it. Not much was worse than calling down and realizing how hard you embarrassed yourself the day before. I'm sorry. You don't need to apologize, Mine. We all feel weak-hearted when we are sick. Mom rubbed my head gently, consoling me. But the kinder she was, the more guilty I felt. I'm really sorry. I cried exclusively out of despair over the lack of books. I couldn't feel lonely without you at all. Tuli was that worried about me, but I just cared about her leaving so I could look for books. I'm so sorry. Tuli's going to the forest with everyone else, but you're still too weak for that. Want to go shopping with Mommy? Uh-huh. Oh my, I wonder where all that enthusiasm come from. Mom smiled happily, thinking that I was excited to be spending time with her, and I responded with a bright smile of my own. I knew you would be excited for this. Mom looked so happy that I didn't go out of my way to correct her. My enthusiasm had just shot through the roof since I was excited about potentially finding a book outside. I would go shopping with her and have her buy me a book. I didn't need a thick book in particular. Anything that I could use to learn this world's writing system would be enough. Honestly, I'd be fine with a workbook aimed for children. If a book was too much, I'd settle for a chart of this world's alphabet or whatever. I'm sure if I say, I won't be lonely if I have a book. I'll stay home alone all day, every day. In a really cute voice, she will buy a picture book or two for her sick little daughter. I can't wait. Okay, Mom, I'll be back later. Tuli peered into the bedroom with her full smile. Since Mom was staying home, she didn't have to babysit me all day. Stay with the other kids, okay? Be careful. Okay. Tuli strapped a large basket on her back and skipped out of the house. It seemed like she was going to play and have fun, but she was actually helping out the family in a crucial way, collecting firewood. She would also grab nuts, mushrooms, and other stuff while she was at it. Whether or not we had good, cheap meals every day depended largely on Tuli. Do your best, Tuli. My lunch is counting on you. This poverty-stricken world didn't have any schools, or children largely helped around the house or had jobs. Or at the least, schools never came up in Mine's memories. Once Kit got a little older than Tuli, they began working as apprentices. If given the choice, I would have preferred to work at an apprentice librarian or apprentice book saleswoman. Going to the market would provide the perfect opportunity to gather information on this kind of thing. I'd find the nearest bookstore, befriend the owner, and become an apprentice this way. Okay, Mine, let's go shopping. It was the first time I was leaving the home since becoming Mine, and my first time wearing anything other than pajamas. My outfit was made up of worn-out hand-me-downs from Tuli, and I had to put on several layers of the thick clothing. I was so bundled up in it, it was kinda hard to walk, but nonetheless I took Mom's hand and took my first step outside our home. So cold, so narrow, so stinky. Perhaps due to this being a stone building, it felt like cold air was flowing from the walls themselves, and not even my several layers of clothing could stop me from feeling chill. I really would have liked to have a fleece jacket or some hand warmers. Not to mention a mask to block the smell and help stave off a cold. Mine, be careful not to fall. Right outside our home was a staircase leading down the building. My body was the size of a 3-year-old toddler, and each step was so large they filled me with terror. My mom pulled me forward. I practically jumped down each wooden step, one by one, listening to them creak as we spiraled down to the bottom of the building. For some reason, only the steps from the second floor downward were made out of pretty stone. We all live in the same building. Why did we get special treatment? I pursed my lips, pounding, as we finally reached the bottom and went outside. If my counting was accurate, we were an apartment of the 5th floor out of the 7. To be honest, for someone as weak, small and sickly as me, just getting out of the house was enough to be exhausted. Now I knew why almost all of my memories took place inside. Even now I was out of breath by the time I got outside. It seemed like that I would just pass out before we even reach our destiny. Mom, it's hard to breathe. Wait a second. But all we've done is leave the house. Are you okay? I just need a little break. As I steadied my breath and reminded myself I need to shape up if I wanted to reach a bookstore, I looked around to get a grasp of my surroundings. A short distance away from our housing complex was a small plaza with a well in the middle. Only the ground around the well was paved with stone, and I could see several older women talking while washing their clothes. That was definitely the well Thule used to wash dishes and get our daily water. I'll carry you on my back, mine. Mom, who must have thought out shopping would never get done if she waited for me, somewhat forcefully plopped me onto her back and started walking away. I couldn't remember this myself, but judging by how she had some time. Sorry. I couldn't remember this myself, but judging by how she had something like a baby carrier on her back, she was probably used to carrying mine around. The plaza with the well was surrounded by tall apartment housings complex on all four sides, with just one path leading to the outside. After passing through the narrow dark alleyway, we emerged into a large road. Wow, this looks exactly like one of those old European cities I've seen photos of. An unfamiliar scene spread out before me, by carts pulled by horses and donkey-like creatures, passing each other by on the white cobblestone road, dotted on their side by stones. I spun around, looking everywhere, like a tourist in my quest to find a bookstore. Mom, which store are we going to? What are you saying, mine? We're going to the market. We almost never go to any stores. According to Mom, most of the stores near ground level sold products for relatively rich individuals and had little that poor commoners like us could buy. We bought the majority of our daily goods at the actual marketplace. In other words, a bookstore is probably a ground floor store just like this? I looked around for bookstore while Mom walked, and soon saw an especially large building that would serve as a solid landmark. It was made of white stone, and despite its simple design, there was a short majesty of it that made it stand out. Is that a castle? No, that's the temple. You'll be going there to be baptized when you turn 7. Ah, a temple. It sounds like religion is enforced here, which sucks. I'll try to avoid that place as much as possible. My instincts and knowledge from my past life made me want to keep my distance from religion, but I didn't know if this world would be too kind to an atheist, so I kept my mouth shut and looked at the walls surrounding the temple. Mom, what are those walls? Those are castle ramparts. Inside is the castle where our lord lives, and the mansions where nobles live. Well, in the end, nothing behind those walls has much to do with you and me. The tall stone walls looked more like the gate to a prison than grounds where royalty lived within a castle. Maybe it would look even more like a prison if the guards were ever on high alert and defending against something. The blank white walls continued on either side, and although it looked like they had been designed by imposing dignity in mind, without any artistic flourishes, they didn't quite feel like the brutish walls of a fortress. It felt like they had been built only for the purpose of separation, and would be defenseless if ever actually attacked. They do look a little different from the European castles I've seen in historical films and stuff. Okay, Mom, what about those other walls? Those are the outer walls. They protect the city. You know Gunther works as a guard at the southern gate, don't you? I knew from Mind's memories that Dad worked as a soldier, but I didn't know that he guarded one of the gates to the city. There's a castle where the Lord of these lands lives, and there are both outer and inner walls here. I guess it's safe to consider this is a capital city? It doesn't seem like that big of a city, judging by the length of the walls and how many people are walking around, but I shouldn't think on that scale of Tokyo or Yokohama anymore. It would be a huge city in comparison to the historical fortress city I read about in my past life. But in this world, where it's normal to have green and blue hair, there were no guarantees that my Urano knowledge would remain accurate. It would be risky to settle on the idea of this being a large or small city before I learned more about the world. The size of the city will change what kind of bookstore it will have. But I don't understand what makes a big city here. Is this city big? Is it small? Tell me, someone! Mine, we need to hurry to the market. Everything good will get snapped up before we get there. I looked around desperately in search for a bookstore on our way to the market, but most of the stores on either side of us had simple drawings on their signboards. The signs were either wooden with the art painted on, or metal with the art engraved into them. But either way, I didn't see anything resembling letters. That was good for someone like me who couldn't read the letters anyway, but a cold chill was starting to run up my spine. Wait, I don't think I've seen a single letter in this whole city. Is the literacy rate that low? Or does writing itself not exist in this world? The very idea made my blood run cold. I hadn't even considered the possibility of a world without letters. Without letters, books couldn't exist in the first place. We reached the market while I was still stunned. I lifted up my head at the cacophony of noises and saw a lively bunch of stands lined up next to each other, with plenty of people passing through. It looked so much like a Japanese culture festival that I felt a little nostalgic. I subconsciously smiled and, after peering into the nearby food stall, saw something that shocked me to the point of smacking my mother's shoulder. "Mom, look! What's that board?" A board with some symbols written on it was stuck into a box with fruit in it. I couldn't read them, but at the very least, that confirmed that this world had letters or numbers or something. I was so starved for letters that the mere sight of such symbols was enough to make my face flush with excitement. Oh, that's the price. It tells us how much we need to pay. Hey Mom, what's it say? Mom looked surprised at how excited I was getting, but I couldn't care about that. I had to read out the numbers on each board I saw, and I couldn't feel them start to connect with the letter I already knew. Okay, great. Keep it up, my precious synapses. Okay, this says 30 lions. After Mom had read out several numbers to me, I tried reading some numbers on my own while gauging her reaction. I must have been right, given how she turned her head around to look at me while blinking rapidly. I'm really surprised you learned them so fast, mine. There are 10 distinct symbols for what seems to be numbers, so I assumed operating with a 10 math would be fine. I'm really glad they don't use base 2 or base 60. I should be able to do math no problem if I can just memorize all the symbols. Oh wait, am I going down the child prodigy path here? At age 10 I'll be God's gift of mankind, and at age 15 I'll be a genius. But once I hit 20 I will just be a normal person. Oh well. Books, unobtainable. So before I start the next chapter I have to drink something, so cheers! So, at least now we know that the new world does have at least numbers. But the title of this chapter doesn't sound so good. Let's see what happens. Okay, we're getting meat next. We need to buy lots of it and then salt or smoke it to make it last. After buying some vegetables and fruit, Mom headed deeper into the market. The stands selling meat were apparently closer to the outer walls. Why are we buying lots of it? We need to prepare for winter, don't we? It's late autumn, so all the farms are butchering most of their animals and leaving just enough to survive the winter. More meat is sold now than at any other time of the year. Plus, animals tend to pack on weight in preparation for hibernating. Tasty, fatty meat is a lot easier to get right now. Does that mean the market goes away during the winter? Isn't that obvious? There's hardly any crops you can farm in the winter. The snow's terrible too, so barely any markets are held during the winter. It was obvious now, but I hadn't thought about it at all. Even in Japan, back in the time before home greenhouses became popular, fruits and vegetables were seasonal and would disappear from store shelves until they were put back on the market later. In an age before freezers and refrigerators made it possible to store food in fresh state, people had to make non-perishable food in their own homes. So basically in this world it's natural to buy and cure food. To be honest, I didn't really see myself being that helpful with any of that. I'm really glad I was reincarnated as a little girl that wouldn't get yelled at for not being a help around the house. It stinks. The foul air got worse the closer we got to the meat stands. I had to hold my nose to bear it, but Mom kept walking forward, without batting an eye. I could hardly believe it. The smell was so bad not even holding my nose closed was enough. It snuck through my mouth and hit me so hard tears formed in my eyes, and yet she didn't seem bothered at all. Has meat always smelled that bad? I've got a bad feeling about this. We reached the meat stands. Stripes of bacon and ham were hanging from the top, plus completely recognizable animal corpses that had obviously just had their skin peeled off. Within the stands were dead animals hanging off hooks, being drained of blood, and beneath them were wide-eyed rabbits and birds. Yeah! I may have seen pictures of skinned animals before, but all the meat I ever saw in my real life had always been re-sliced and put in packs. The meat stands of this world were far too shocking for me. Goosebumps rose across my skin and tears dripped out of my eyes. I wanted to shut my eyes to block it all out, but my eyes remained locked on, as if I had forgotten how to close them. Mine? Mine! Mom shook me a little and spanked my rear end, but a second later I saw a pig squealing in fear as the butcher prepared to chop it up. A crowd of grinning people surrounded it, eagerly awaiting the moment of its death. I let out a small cry right before the pig's last moments, passed out on my mother's back. Something flowed into my mouth. It was a liquid that smelled so strongly of alcohol I wanted to gag. I didn't want to drink it, and the unexpected liquid went into my windpipe. Coughing hard, I stood up while blinking rapidly. Was that alcohol? Who in the world would give an innocent little girl strong alcohol like that? What will you do if I get actual alcohol poisoning? I opened my eyes wide and saw my mom holding what looked like a wine bottle. Mine, you're awake? Thank goddess, the stimulant really did work. Mom? She was holding me with a really relieved look in her face, so I couldn't just say it out loud, but allow me to vent a little on the inside. Stimulant or not, why the heck would you ever give a child alcohol that strong? And I mean, A weak little girl that's always sick and just recovered from a bad fever that nearly killed her too. Okay, mine. Now that you're awake, let's go buy some meat. Bruh. I shook my head on instinct. What I had just seen was already burned into my retinas. I was so horrible, I'd probably have nightmares about it, and just thinking about it gave me goosebumps. I never wanted to go there again. I still feel kinda sick. Can I stay here? You can go ahead, Mom. What? But... Mom furrowed her brows. I looked around and decided to ask the older lady managing the stand behind us for help. I needed somewhere to stay before Mom dragged me away. Ma'am, can I please stay here for a little bit? I'll be still and wouldn't get in your way. You sure are polite, little girl, aren't you? Your mother brought some alcohol for me, so I don't mind. Miss, go ahead and finish your shopping. You don't want to pull your sick child around and make her pass out again, do you? The alcohol-selling lady, who had seemingly sold Mom that stimulant, crackled to herself and easily accepted my request. The middle-aged man running what looked like a pawn stand nearby looked at me sympathetically and gestured me over. You can come stay behind my stand. Nobody will kidnap you back here. I went behind the stand and sat on the ground without hesitation. The strong alcohol from before was stirring around in my body. It'd be dangerous for me to walk around in this state. I'll be right back, mine. Don't go anywhere, okay? As Mom hurried off to finish her shopping, I stayed sitting down and lazily stared at the wares of the two stands. This was apparently the season where she got new shipments of fruit wine, so customer after customer walked up to buy small barrels of it from her. On the other hand, not many people stopped by the pawn stand. I wonder what people even pawn in this world. I took a look at the wares surrounding me, and I didn't recognize what more than half of them were used for. I pointed at the stuff lined in front of me and asked the older man what one of them was. Mister, what's this? You haven't used one before? It's something you use when waving clove, and this is a trap used for hunting. The old man seemed a little bored from the lack of customers, so he gave me explanation for everything I pointed at. Almost everything considered normal for daily life in this city was something I didn't recognize. Even when searching through Mine's memories, I found that she hadn't been familiar with any of them either, maybe due to the lack of interest. I looked at his line of products, letting out odd murmurs at their various purposes, and eventually reached the corner of his stand, where I found a thick and heavy stack of papers bound tightly, just like a book. The binding was masterfully done, with gold carvings pressed into each corner of the cover. It was about 40 centimeters tall and looked exactly like something I would have seen in a glass case back in the libraries I used to go to. A book? Wait, isn't that a book? The moment I realized the bound paper were actually a book, the world around me lit up in pink. My heart brightened and I felt as if the dark clouds that had surrounded me for days had finally been swept away. Mister, what's this? What is it? Oh, that's a book. Yes, I finally found one. Here's a book. It's just one, but it's here. In the midst of my desperate over whatever or not books ever existed in the world, I had finally found one. I looked at the bound papers while trembling with emotion. It was a fairly large and heavy-looking book with rich decorations. I wouldn't be able to carry it with my weak, sickly arms. Plus, it definitely looked expensive, and I knew for sure my mom wouldn't buy it, no matter how hard I begged. But if books existed at all, that meant for sure that there would be a smaller, easier to carry book around. I spun around and began interrogating the old man with clear desperation. Mister, do you know where they sell books? What, like in a store? There aren't any stores for books. The old man looked at me, baffled at the mere idea. My excitement immediately plummeted. Why are there books, but not stores to sell them? You have to copy each book by hand to get a new one. They are so expensive, there's no market for them. Even that book is just something a noble pawned to pay back at death. It's not for sale. It's looking like he won't be paying me back in time. And although I will start selling it soon, only nobles will be interested, I bet. Ah, freaking nobles. This means I couldn't read books too if I were reborn as a noble, right? Why did you make me a commoner, god? I felt slightly murderous rage towards nobles. They were unfairly blessed to live surrounded by books from birth. This is your first time seeing a book, little girl? I nodded over and over without looking away from the book. It was the first time I was seeing a book in this world anyway. And since only nobles deal with books, plus the lack of bookstores, this might end up being the last time too, which means... Mister, I have a request. I clenched my fists tightly, and after standing up straight, immediately knelt on the ground. Huh? What's this all of a sudden? The old man opened his eyes wide in surprise as I groveled on the hands and knees before him. It was just basic stuff that you need to show your sincerity when making a request, and the ultimate form of sincerity was pitifully groveling. With my head held low, I told him my true feelings. I know that I can't afford this book, but please, at least let me touch it. I want to rub my cheeks against it. I want to sniff the book and inhale the scent of the ink before it's taken away from me. Despite my passionate request, the only thing that follows was painfully silence. He wasn't replying to me. I timidly rose my head bit by bit and saw that for some reason the older man had a shocked and disgusted look on his face, as if he was looking at an unbelievably pervert up close. It kind of feels like my sincerity didn't get across to him. I don't know what's gotten into you, but I get a feeling I shouldn't let you touch that book. No way. I tried to ask him again, but before I could, my time limit ran out. Mine, I'm back, let's go. I nearly cried after hearing Mom's voice. There was a book so close, but I hadn't read it. I hadn't touched it. I hadn't even smelled its scent. What's wrong, Mine? Did he do something to you? No, he didn't. I hurriedly shook my head after Mom suddenly glared at the older man. If I didn't clear the misunderstanding up fast, I would be bringing trouble to the nice man who had sheltered me from the butcher and taught me about books. My head feels weird, Mom. What did you make me drink? I felt weird since waking up. Ah, the stimulant might have been a bit much for you. You'll be fine if you drink some water and rest when you get home. Mom nodded to herself, but didn't seem to regret making her child drink alcohol. She took my hand and pulled to get me walking home. I twirled around to the two stand owners and smiled brightly. Thank you for letting me stay here. I'd be bad for my mental health if I didn't thank them. According to Mine's memory, it wasn't customary to bow in this world, so I just settled for smiling and waving. Smiles were important in making human interaction successful. They saw me off with smiles on their faces too, so it must have worked. Mine, do you still feel bad? I talked little on my way home, me on Mom's back again. I looked again along the way, but there really weren't any bookstores. I had thought that I would beg for a child's picture book and slowly learn letters, but the day ended without me getting anything. All I learned was that there weren't any bookstores. I now lived in a city with a castle and magnificent stone gates, but it didn't have a single bookstore. Since that man said that books weren't really for selling, it was possible that this city wasn't special. Maybe there were no bookstores in the whole world. This is awful. I loved books so much I could go days without eating as long as I could read, and now you're telling me to live life without books, God? That's just cruel. Even if I told my parents I wanted to become a noble in order to read books, they just fed me like a cute girl with big silly dreams. I couldn't tell them I didn't want to be born in this family, but at the very least, I would have liked to be born in a family with enough wealth to fish through a fallen noble's belongings and maybe get a book that way. My family's circumstances were so awful that I already been beaten down by them. I know I wouldn't get a book no matter how hard I cry or how many tantrums I throw. With no bookstores, I have no way of getting books. And what do I do if I can't get them? Well, what choice do I have but to make them myself? When the going gets tough, the tough gets going. I'll get books no matter what. I won't let life beat me. So, there are actually books in the world. Sadly, they are only for the nobles. Huh. But as mine just made the conviction that she will just get the books herself, it could be really interesting. But I think I should end this really short stream here, and we can continue the next time. I hope you enjoyed this stream a little bit, and thanks for watching it. Till next time, please stay healthy. Bye!